All right, so good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Hunt or Be Hunted webinar hosted by Group IB and Cybersecurity Africa. I hope that everyone's doing well today and not being too badly affected by the load shedding. Hopefully my generator in the background is not too noisy, but I'm sure we're all in a similar boat, unfortunately. My name is Christian Jurison. I'm the Business Development Manager for the African region at Group IB. I'm sure most of you have had dealings with either myself or the Group IB team up to this point, but for those of you who haven't, I'm joined today by Tim Bobak. He is the EMEA Director based out of the UK, and Andrew Parshin, who heads up the international pre-sales team on the threat hunting platform. He's based out of the R&D department in Moscow. I would like to start by thanking the SCAfrica team for setting up the session today and badgering everybody who's joined today. Tony, Nick, Sonia, the rest of the team, you guys have worked hard to arrange the webinar, and we're grateful for the fantastic turnout that we have. Thank you as well to the Group IB marketing team, Kira, and all the others who assisted greatly in developing all the materials and supporting SCAfrica's efforts. I'm going to run through a quick introduction of Group IB for those of you who've joined us today and are encountering us for the first time. Also maybe get us some time for a few more attendees to join. But I'd like to guarantee that today will not be a sales pitch. We will make it as engaging, as interesting as possible. But I feel that it'd be negligent if I didn't brag a little bit and just clarify that we do actually know what we're talking about. Bear with me 1 second and I will actually just share my screen. Okay. All right. I'm sorry, Andrew, will you just confirm that my screen share is working properly?
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So Group IB, let me just actually go straight to this slide and go ahead from there. So Group IB was started 17 years ago by Ilya Sachkov and Dmitry Volkov. These two gentlemen are still at the helm of the organization as the CEO and the CTO, respectively. The organization was initially started as an incident response and investigation company, but quickly grew to be the biggest forensics lab in Eastern Europe. Today, we are a global organization, and we are currently headquartered in Singapore. We have satellite offices in Vietnam, London, Johannesburg, and soon to have a global head office situated in Amsterdam. As mentioned earlier, our research and development team still sits in Moscow. The CERT that we have, CERT GIB, was opened and operational about 9 years ago and is a member of FIRST and Trusted Introducer. It performs a number of functions over and above the obvious primary response capability and is currently geographically split between both Singapore and Moscow. After our starts in investigating and incident response, we quickly realized that there was a large amount of telemetry which we were generating. This was primarily around APT groups and their techniques, tactics, and procedures. It was obvious that this information would be of benefit to the other sectors, particularly the F&I space. And this resulted in us releasing the threat intelligence platform and shortly thereafter our network detection and threat hunting tool, which we named TDS. Along the same vein of research and information sharing, we then released our client-side anti-fraud solution called SecureBank. This was developed to complement AML solutions, anti-money laundering solutions, which we noticed did not provide the same level of functionality. Our development endeavors have always kind of been in the vein of reducing criminal activity and improving client and end user experience. And the SecureBank solution definitely fits within that space quite nicely. We're continuing to grow as an organization. We're continuously refining and developing our services and our solutions offering. And I think we'll probably get a decent highlight of that today. Just taking a look at Group IB in numbers, we're currently protecting over 450 organizations. We have completed well over 1,000 high-tech cybercrime cases, a couple of those which have taken place in South Africa and the African continent as well. The number here, I think, is very wrong, and the reason why it is because we're growing so rapidly, but it says 400 employees worldwide. We're currently sitting at about 450 employees. I don't think a day goes by that I don't get notification of 1 or 2 new members joining the team, which is always very exciting. Always very highly technical, competent people which are joining as well, which is always great to see. Obviously, we're recognized by the competitive comparison companies such as Forrester, Gartner, IDC. We work and are in actual fact official partners of Europol and Interpol. We provide training, expert witness testimony, assistance in investigations to these 2 organizations. We're also recommended by the OSCE and SWIFT. And as you can see, we've got some high-end clients there. Internationally, more locally, we also provide threat intelligence to a number of the bigger banks, Absa Bank, Standard Bank, FNB as well. And we're also growing out to include a number of the banks on the African continent. Just quickly to run through our technology stack. Obviously, we are still a services organization, and we do still provide a large amount of investigation and incident response. Again, we have actually provided assistance and support and also just direct engagements in the space on in South Africa and on the continent. We're able to do all of the good stuff that goes along with that, including red teaming and assessments, SWIFT assessments, DFIR, etc. We also do internal and external threat hunting. As mentioned, we have our CERT. We work very closely in the digital forensics and malware analysis space. And we also provide cyber education, as mentioned, to the likes of Interpol and Europol, so it's very highly developed. It's also all very much associated with our expertise, and so is focused on the threat hunting side of things, SOC development, etc. Threat intelligence, as mentioned, this is our primary and probably, should I say, most popular service offering or solution offering. Very well refined and polished offering that actually underpins all of the other solutions that we have in the stack. This leads into the TDS, as mentioned, our threat detection system, which is a modular network security and threat hunting solution based upon a sensor which spans traffic, both north, south, and east-west traffic. It detects malicious files and sends it up to the sandbox, which is a network detonation platform, which we refer to as Polygon. We have HuntPoint, which does all the good stuff that needs to be done on our endpoints. And all of this telemetry is pushed into the Huntbox, which is a unified and centralized threat hunting platform that also ties back into the threat intelligence platform itself. I touched briefly upon the secure bank solution or secure portal in the non-banking sphere, which is, as mentioned, a client-side anti-fraud solution. It basically scores sessions per user, per device, per login in terms of the likelihood of fraudulent activity or maliciousness that we pick up. Obviously very useful for the banking sector, but also we're finding has much more use cases for pretty much any organization that sits and has a portal that needs to be secured, even internally. And then also spinning off from the threat intelligence offering is our brand protection offering. We are scanning and analyzing about 4 billion IPv4 addresses daily whilst we scan the internet, and we look for brand abuse for our clients. This is not just limited to the internet, but obviously includes the dark web, includes social media channels, and forums, etc. We can do sea level protection, pretty much the full gamut of protecting a brand and an organization and all the members. So with regards to all of this, I am obviously available, and anybody who is on this call is welcome to reach out to me at any given time, and we can discuss further. But as mentioned, I'm not here to pitch the solutions to you guys. So I will rather hand over to Tim, who is going to take us through an overview of the threat landscape in Africa and South Africa. And then Andrew will run us through some engaging and interesting use cases. Thank you very much, Tim. Over to you.
Thanks very much, Chris. Just to confirm, Andrew, can you currently hear me?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. Well, bear with me, guys, just for 1 second while I spin up the screen sharing. But yeah, to build on what Chris has been saying, and that's that really from our experience in global threat intelligence, Group IB's obviously been able to view and understand the developments that we see happening at a global level. So to confirm, and then really tie this into Africa. So just to confirm, are you guys able to now see my screen in the share? And is it full screen?
No. It's not full screen right now.
Okay, bear with me. 1 second. This is a new conferencing platform for me, and accordingly, despite a large amount of testing that we did, I'm still technically incompetent. But hopefully now this should be improved, or not at all, in fact. So is it now the full screen?
1 moment. It's still loading.
Well, let's give it a chance.
I guess no.
Okay, all right then. Well, I mean, I can run this entire presentation off the top of my head, but let's give it one more time, and I'll try a full screen share and see if it's coming through better. But now it appears to be fixed. Is that correct?
Not yet, actually. Oh yeah, right now it's working. So
fantastic. All right, Thank you, guys. Well, we've overcome the initial issues. So really what I want to be talking about today is obviously the African threat landscape and how it's increasingly relevant, basically from our global experience, what's happening not just in a case-by-case basis, but looking to expand this and say, well, what are we seeing globally? What trends are we seeing developing? And how is this actually specific to Africa? What groups are we seeing, both in South Africa and also more broadly across the continent? And some of the primary things that we've seen is that, and this goes, it could be for a specific continent, it could be, somewhere like Southeast Asia and focusing on a country like Indonesia. But actually what we've seen is that all of the issues that we see organizations facing, and you guys might see in the press from the large amount of PR that's generated by United States cybersecurity companies, for example, that there's some major threats happening, like government APTs, attacks for espionage, financial APTs, stealing from banks and their customers, cybercrime as a service now developing, the development of localized regional groups that are now performing both cybercrime and cyber espionage in their specific area, undone on a local basis, and finally the ever-present threat of ransomware. And what we've seen in Africa, and also which I'll be focusing in on today, is that all of these threats are very relevant. There are obviously more threats, but I have only a 20-minute slot. So what I'd like to talk about is some of the facts that we've seen developing over the last, I would say, 6-month period, what we've observed, where we can disclose, obviously, and the general perceptions and changes that we've seen in the period. So the first thing that is really important for everybody to note is that people are interested in targeting organizations in Africa as a whole. There is money to be made for cyber criminals in doing this. This post is from Oblivion, a Russian-speaking threat actor. A quick translation of the post is that I will be filling up all of my attacks with a focus on Africa. I've got a special price for attacking a bank in Cameroon, Senegal, and the Congo, 110,000 euros for the access. So this was posted back at the beginning of July. June. But what we see is, though, threat actors continue to target organizations at a global level. They really do not care where these organizations are actually based. And because of the lower level, in some cases, especially in areas in Central Africa, where there is limited IT security budget, but still the requirement for business continuity, the capacity to steal from all of the same tool sets. For example, if you're targeting a bank, that could be the ATM systems or the card processing system or the SWIFT systems. Threat actors understand, and they've shifted their attacks because they understand I can get the same result from targeting an organization anywhere in the world. And accordingly, this has led to a demand for access and people buying and selling access into different organizations across Africa. This is just one snapshot. We see a large amount of these kind of posts on a daily basis from the work of our threat intelligence team, monitoring the deep and the dark web, interacting with threat actors in order to get details and more background about the attacks that are happening. Also, a quick note about cybercrime as a service. Cybercriminals are increasingly focusing the elements of their attacks down to very specific parts. So it could be just gaining access, but that threat actor will then resell the access in order to make their money. They don't care what happens as the next step. And that basically means that anyone can do whatever they like inside of these networks that they then provisioned access into. As a next step, we've also seen, because of the development of cybercrime as a service and also the sale and sharing of tools, that various different regional groups have developed, and accordingly, they've also started to target the local institutions in their countries. So they can be gaining access to networks themselves. The particular case, for example, that we're sharing on the screen now is a Kenyan group called Silent Cards. They've been extremely active in Kenya for the past 3-year period and continue to be active. And they've splintered off now into several different groups that are targeting broad amount of sectors. It's not just financials and banking, it's government, electronics, electricity, power generation, national critical infrastructure, supermarkets, and they have various different methodologies for targeting these institutions. What's extremely exciting about this, and where we've seen an enormous shift, and one that I didn't expect to happen so quickly, is that regional threat actor groups who might be purchasing tools from cybercrime as a service access or purchasing network availability, they're now also writing their own tools and from analysis and reverse engineering from the Group IB intelligence team and malware reversing specialists, we've managed to identify in the source code that actually many of the commands are in fact written in Swahili. So my Swahili isn't quite as good as my English, so I won't butcher the pronunciation, but we're seeing commands written in for waking up, getting information, and this is, a number of, I would say this is just a screenshot of, I think, 30 different Swahili-based commands relating to the tools that this particular group has then conducted. We're able to actually investigate this group further, confirm victims inside of Kenya, and also help some of those organizations in the incident response process. But this group, Silent Cards, has been very interesting because they have developed their own tools, as well as employing tools that they have bought from different cybercrime as a service actors. And because of the lack of oversight, because of the reduced investment in cybersecurity in the continent of Africa, we're predicting that these types of groups are going to continue and expand, and there's going to be a proliferation because these groups are difficult to arrest. There is a lack of, I would say, legal frameworks in order to combat the local groups who are targeting African countries. These particular threats are going to continue to grow and grow. The African threat landscape, or the perception of African cybercrime, shouldn't be, pigeonholed towards, 419 scams and, Nigerian romance scam threat actors. There's actually an increasing level of sophistication in the local groups who are performing attacks in the region. And this goes not just beyond technical attacks, this goes towards money mules, so the creation of money mule networks for the movement of funds, and then obviously the criminal gains that are associated with these. But what the key message is that we expect this to continue, and there is no sign of any downward trend. The level of sophistication of a group like this has grown over time, and this is also what we should expect and what we've observed in other regions. For example, in Eastern Europe, where we've seen, for example, Romanian or Ukrainian threat actors start with a very low level of technical knowledge, but they've then copied tools. So, for example, the tools used by Silent Cards are very much basic, but they're able to use these attacks, and they're then able to elevate the types of attacks and purchase different cybercrime tools. So, for example, I have a list of the potential attacks, or in fact confirmed attacks they've done, or potential attacks that they can perform. One example is the theft from ATM systems. Silent Cards was able to purchase a ATM malware called Cutlet, if I remember correctly, and that particular malware tool was then used on banking ATM systems in Kenya in order to steal funds. So because of the capacity of these groups to lock into the global cybercrime community, this is leading to an increased amount of threat and also a reinvestment. As these groups are more effective, they're able to then skill up, they're able to use new tools, become familiar with these, and then that leads to obviously an increase in the amount and an increase in the severity of the attacks that are happening. In addition to that, we do identify just general ties in with the global cybercrime landscape. The reason why I'm bringing up this example is that everyone is a potential victim. I've chosen Burkina Faso because we've identified some Cobalt Strike servers and also nanocore related Trojans from our infrastructure scanning threat intelligence. But what we're seeing is that anyone is at threat. It's not just large organizations in South Africa, these huge financial institutions. It's even regional banks, in this case, Chorus Bank, which I think only has about 20 different branches, and they're being targeted specifically with relatively advanced tools like Cobalt Strike by regional threat actors. And this basically is showing that the level of scope for attacks has increased, and also cyber criminals have shifted their targeting. They're beginning to understand that why would I go and target, for example, a major financial institution in the United States, which has got a huge security budget, hundreds of millions of dollars, or I could go and target Chorus Bank and steal money as well, and they might not even have antivirus deployed across their endpoints or updated Windows. So it really goes down to a very, very focused level. And, there are countries that I did know about Burkina Faso before this call, but it's not something that looms large in the geographies of cybercrime. And I think what we need to understand as professionals looking at cybercrime now is to understand its pervasive nature. At the current time, not a lot of research is being generated in and about Africa. This is something that Group IB is working heavily to change. But we're seeing these repeat kind of attacks. And a lot of the organizations that are affected when they are attacked, because of the lack of legislation that's in place, the lack of, personal data protection laws or reporting structures, it means that the majority of these attacks and campaigns go unseen. And there can be, well publicized cases. There have been a couple in South Africa, relating to data theft at the beginning of the year, ransomware attacks, that you guys will all be aware about. However, what we really want to draw a particular focus into is that these attacks are now happening everywhere across the African continent, and people need to be aware at a broader level that these are indeed this is the new normal. And accordingly, we've seen global APT groups take the same stance. It's not just the regional groups who are benefiting from a lack of investment and the lack of, let's say, law enforcement oversight or government regulation or threat intelligence sharing. Organizations who have been extremely prolific in the past, criminal enterprises like the Silence Group, who started off their attacks in Eastern Europe, but then quickly began targeting major financial institutions in the UK, where I'm sitting today, in Western Europe, Southern Europe, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, countries like Singapore, where there's a high level of maturity. They've now shifted as of this year and 2019 to targeting less protected organizations, but because of the capacity that they have and the successes they've had in the past, going after a big bank, for example, they're able to very quickly have success in less developed and less well-financed cybersecurity organizations. And this particular group is a Russian-speaking organization. It should be noted that everyone is now active. We do see Chinese APT. We do see different, it could be local threat actor groups, as we've evidenced in Kenya, or groups targeting Burkina Faso, which we believe can be attributed to West African groups. Specifically French-speaking Senegalese threat actor groups who are generating their phishing and their infrastructure in the region with regionally focused language. But what we're seeing is that there'll be global groups as well who will be also targeting Africa because of the ease that they have in order to target these kind of institutions. And just to put a quick review into the kill chain of these kind of groups who are targeting, it's very, very similar to the normal attack methodologies that we're seeing, and that is phishing emails being sent through with malicious documents and opened by the end user that then drops a dropper onto their workstation. That particular malware sample has been tested against all of the AV that's standardly deployed. So they run their samples against tools like VirusTotal in order to confirm that they're not actually going to be detected, or they use, again, cyber criminal groups who have developed engines for testing antivirus outside of the scope of security researchers. And so basically like multi-scanners for AV. These groups test using this, then they provide access, they gain access into the victim networks. They download their particular malware tool onto the endpoint, in this instance, the Silence main module. And from there, they move laterally into the network to the object of their attention. It could be an ATM system, it could be a card processing system or a SWIFT system. And in this case, they then gain access to card processing, increase the limits on a couple of cards that they have up to maybe $2 million, and then use those cards anywhere in the world in order to take funds out of ATMs and steal and get cash in hand. So what we're seeing is a shift in attention. We've seen a shift where the international cyber criminal groups are beginning to understand that they can monetize their activity effectively in Africa. As the economies in Africa grow, the potential benefit of conducting a ransomware attack or crypto locking attack, depending on your terminology, in order to gain funds has increased. And as Africa over time grows and becomes richer, and as the economies become stronger, the attention of cyber criminal groups, wherever they're based in the world, is obviously naturally going to increase because they believe that they can access these funds. Accordingly, that's a short overview of the African threat landscape, but I'd like to end on a positive note, and that's that obviously we're in a situation now under COVID where budgets are being cut. The situation is probably going to get a little bit worse before it gets better. But from our perception, we are also seeing not just a growth in the professionalism of the cyber criminal groups, we're also seeing a large amount of investment and upskilling across the African continent from the blue teams who are engaged. And with partners like Cybersecurity Africa, we've been very much seeing this through interacting with the different organizations, whether it's in West Africa, countries like Nigeria, Ghana, or East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and obviously as well in South Africa. The investment and the desire to protect organizations against these new threats and the changes and developments in the cybercrime threat landscape is increasing. So on that, I guess, positive note, what I will do is hand over to Andre from our team, who'll then talk about how we can assist in identifying some of these attacks as they take place inside of your networks or your customer networks, and what different methodologies can be employed in order to maintain defenses in the current threat landscape and in our day and age. So Andre, over to you. I will stop my share and accordingly hand over.
Yeah, thank you a lot. Just one moment, could you please stop sharing from the webinar, like from the window inside it, so I could start it with my own presentation. So thank you, Tim. Again, hello everyone. Thank you all for your time and interest that you put into that webinar. So basically, I want to start with the with the process of threat hunting itself. So I guess you can see my screen right now. So I will tell you about the detection of advanced threats and streamlined response during the threat hunting and the threat hunting process itself. So I want to start with the evolution of the detection of threats. So basically, I think that you understand like how it works, where it starts from. So basically, it starts from the signature-based approach, which everyone knows, of course. So there was an emergence of traditional antiviruses, the IDS solutions, which can cover the known malicious code and known malicious traffic, but they are not enough. Like the signature-based approach doesn't work for a long time already. It might like help you with the really low efficient campaigns, for example. So the next step was, let's say, the emergence of behavioral analysis. So basically, when we start to analyze the malicious malwares and how them works, what it does, what might be the harm of these actions of this file being executed, for example. So it starts to cover the previously unknown malicious code, like basing the decision making upon the results of the execution of a file. So there was an emergence of sandboxing technologies, next gen antiviruses, and so on. So, but what if the threat actor used some well-known tool that is not showing its malicious content before the intended goal was reached? So basically, you have to look into the tactics, tools, and procedures of the cyber gangs to understand what are the tools that might be used against you. So basically, there was an emergence of threat intelligence, and it started to be a knowledge base for all of those threats that then can be used by threat hunters, by any other solutions that can protect you from those kind of threats. And what if you want to be protected from those kind of threats, the advanced threats, when you know that some legitimate tool might be used against you? So basically, you have to implement the external and internal threat hunting within your perimeter. So you have to hunt for a signs of compromisation, for example, or you can do the manual searching for some of the tools or tactics that were executed within your infrastructure. So basically, there was a start of threat hunting process itself, and an emergence of such solutions as the Handbox from our side that has like integrated threat intelligence within it to conduct like automatic response and streamlined response based on the tactics to TTPs of the cyber criminals, or even the unknown attacks, yet unknown attacks. So as you may know, the main vector still, the dominant one, is the email. So the phishing or spear phishing emails are still the dominant. It might take more than 80% of all the attacks conducting. So some of the attacks are executed through the phishing websites or watering hole. And basically, it's some kind of not widely used, but still it is still it is used by the criminals to infect some website, and then when some accountant try to download some template of their work, they got infected. And some of the attacks conducted by insiders who then try to install some remote access tool or get the foothold inside the network. So basically, you can divide those attacks into the already known like structure, so-called the cyber kill chain. So as an example, here is the silence attack and its kill chain. So it all starts with a reconnaissance when they collecting the information upon the existing customers, for example, who is working right now. They're building the scripts, they are building their tools, so that's the part of optimization. And then they're trying to, they hosted the servers, they are using and doing the research upon the domain names that they can use for their spear phishing attacks, for example. So they built like the lengthy messages and more tailored to the victim. So it will be highly likely to be opened. So basically, then they started to trying to deliver this payload through the decoy Microsoft Word documents, for example, with the exploits inside it. So after this mail will be opened, or this file will be executed at the intended target, it will then get the persistence in the network, in the system itself. So basically there wasn't the silence main module was installed that can then use the proxy bot to hit or to conceal its activity. So after getting the persistence, they use the FARS and EDA, so Empire DNS agent, and FARS, the tool that helps them to gather and to collect the credentials, to then do a lateral movement to find those targets that were intended, and then used or hacked the banking system with the atmosphere to move the money or to create a limitless credit card to then cash out all those money from the banks. So there is a process that will help to understand whether do you have like this kind of threat within your perimeter. It's called threat hunting, and why it's so like necessary for that. So basically, the threat can exist within a network in average for 99 days. And just imagine that only 7 days are enough to compromise the main and main credentials. So basically, after those 7 days, the hacker will have like the full access within the network. But still, he won't be like visible for you, and that might be a really threat. Like the most harmful punch is when you don't apprehend it. So the threat hunting, it was firstly seen in 2010. So basically, it's the process of proactively and iteratively searching through networks to detect and isolate advanced threats that evade existing security solutions, such as the anti-IPT solutions, NTA, and so on. It's based on the different points. So, like, why should we use that? So basically, it's proactive detection of the new threats that came from the definition of it. It reduces the dwell time that was mentioned, so the 99 days that are that they are located within a network, being uncovered. So the increasing the protection level. So basically, the iteratively process means that after you found something, you have to add all those tactics or procedures into your routine to find those threats, if any, or on an approach. So the check of effectiveness of your existing solutions, for example. So basically, you can check whether are you able to detect such kind of threats. And as mentioned, you continuously increasing the protection level and protection from the further attacks. So here are the main keys, and basically you may know about them. Like, the threat hunting must be proactive. So it's not based on alerts or any like red warnings that you have something inside your network. It's not like that. It's based on the hypotheses. So basically, you have like to predict or to build a hypothesis that you might be already penetrated, and someone does have access in your network or the persistence inside your PCs. So basically, it can't be fully automated because it might need like the huge artificial intelligence that can do such things. But right now, we don't have any of anyone doesn't have it. So and its purpose is for anomaly search. So basically, you're searching for artifacts, you're searching for some procedures or tools that were used, for example, and that are not usual thing inside usual network. So is it the threat hunting a buzzword? Already, as mentioned, it was previously developed, or emerged into 2010. And basically, nobody like knows at that time like how it works, what it is, and so on. So for recent years, this word became some kind of buzzword. So for startups, bingos, in all those lists, you can find like how what are the words that will be used in those like seminars or webinars and so on. Basically, threat hunting one of those words. So let's like define the threat hunting. So it's not a new concept, yeah, because it was developed previously. It's not technology or tool, it's the procedure, it's the process of threat hunt. It cannot be fully automated because, yeah, of course, you can like seeking for some hashes, you can searching for, I don't know, IP addresses or domain names, but that's not the threat hunting itself. It's not based on alerts because it's proactive process, of course. It's not the IOC's checking tool. So, and I will like show you these examples from the use cases that will follow my presentation. So, what's about the reactive and proactive? So, the reactive means that you have some tools inside your infrastructure that can catch some kind of threats. For example, you have like the firewall, you have like your SIEM solution, for example, or any other solutions that can, yeah, trigger the alerts. It has low efficiency and low cost because it's the passive activity. It's like the fans inside your country yard, for example. So the dog won't like leap over these fans, but you must understand that the man could do that, and man can use like different options to do that. So what's related to proactive? It depends on a qualification of the team that is utilizing the threat hunting process. So basically, if you don't have, you can like hire the student who can seek or search for some IOCs, but that's not active. Yeah, that's not proactive threat hunting. It can be done automatically. You have to nurture them. You have to provide the tools, basically the things that are really like the point between them. The threat hunters don't just sit at their security consoles waiting for alerts to go off or a threat to be detected. Instead, they rely on their entire experience and knowledge to search through telemetry data that is continuously collected from endpoints and network sensors. Yeah, aside from that, threat hunters are also active consumers of threat intelligence products, which are used to explore that so-called tactics, tools, and procedures used by attackers. So having obtained intelligence about the new intrusion techniques, a threat hunter creates a hypothesis of how this technique might be exploited to attack the infrastructure. So it depends. It is high efficiency. It has high efficiency because it will lead to explosion of the threats located within the network. And of course, it has the high cost because it includes the tools that must be already set up, already within the network, already working, and the cost that for a team that can do all those things. So there was definition of the pyramid of pain, and here is an examples of the base things that can be called threat hunters, but they are not. Basically, only the red, the red square is the part of threat hunting process. Like the first steps are the hash values, IP addresses, and domain names that can be used for the like basic searching within the threat intelligence, for example, or adding the hashes to trying to prevent the harm coming from some phishing attacks and so on. But that's not enough. You must understand like the most advanced threats use the legitimate tools, for example, the netscan.exe right here, or they might, let's say, has a tail as an artifacts that are kept into the system, for example, or we have to look at to the TTPs. So basically, UAC bypass using sysprep.exe. It's the technique that you have to seek for or looking for. So here are the differences between those layers. Basically, the basic threat hunting can be automated. So looking for hashes, looking for IP addresses or domain names that are connected with the infrastructure of malicious actors. Of course, you can automate those things, but you have like to build your own threat intelligence or use any kind of sources, or better, all kind of sources to have like those hash knowledge based. But it won't be enough. Like the hashes are really easily being changed, and I will show you that. The IP addresses might relate to previously unknown infrastructure, for example. So that's why you have to obtain a global threat hunting feature to understand those differences. Domains are the same as an IP addresses, so there might be both. They might be used and abused, for example, by the attackers. But if you don't have the global threat hunting features, you won't be able to detect those kind of threats. So the threat hunting, which is the solid threat hunting, let's say, it can be optimized with specific tools. So basically, you have to obtain those tools that will be then used as your knowledge base, such as the threat intelligence services, or the tools that will then collect all the logs, for example, so the log management, the SIEM solution, or the TDS solution as well, because yeah, it's providing such kind of capabilities. So from the threat hunting perspective, it has like its own maturity model by Squirrel. So the first level of your maturity of your threat hunting process is the initial one. So it relies primarily on automatic alerting. And of course, it's not like it's just the beginning of threat hunting process, yeah, because yeah, we know like right now that it can be fully automated. It has, on initial level, it has little or no routine data collection. So basically, it's when the processes are not established yet, and you have like to build those to reach the next level, to the minimal level. So the first level is the minimal. It incorporates threat intelligence indicator searches. So basically, when you use some open threat intelligence or some proprietary ones, you have some IOCs and you can search through them. But that might be not enough, because yeah, we know that the hashes might change, the IP addresses might change, and they, from the time perspective, might be referred to another threats, for example, and it moderate or high level or of routine data collection. So it's when its whole process starts. So the procedural level is the second one. It when you follows data analysis procedures created by others. So you can search for some techniques or some patterns of threat hunting of others to conduct those kinds of process within your network. So right here you can have a high or very high level of routine data collection. So basically, when you have all those points of your security perimeter being set up. So basically the firewalls, the VPNs, the Windows logs, and yeah, there's a lot of EDR solutions, antiviruses, and so on. So when you have like those kind of visibility over what's going on there, you can do the procedural, or you can count onto or being into the procedural level of threat hunting maturity. So the innovative one is when you create your own, or when your threat hunters create their own analysis procedures. So basically, it's when you implementing or developing the new ways of hunting the threats. And the leading one is when you can automate most of this kind of activities. So that's when you're on a high level and you can celebrate and drink champagne and so on. So the next step is like how it was evolved. So basically, it's step-by-step process, and it starts from the internal and manual activity within the network infrastructure. So with the technologies such as the SIEM solution or IDS solutions, it can be described as a manual process. The estimated time for seeking those threats might count as hours or days or months even. So yeah, because you know that 99 days. So yeah, keep that in mind. So the interfaces are the various systems when you switch on between the tabs from your SIEM solution, from your threat intelligence, and trying to combine all those things. So basically, when you trying to jump from one tab to another, for example, you can you can lose something. That's why, or when you trying to look for some specific logs, for example, you can lose something, and that's why the human error factor is really high. So basically, you can even miss the thread if you just build your hypothesis or search query just wrong. So, and that's might lead to a harm from the APT groups. The next step is when we have the automated or partly automated process. So basically, when we have the hunt point or a hunt box with the hunt box, sorry, you can see the correlation for basic threat hunting, and it provides you the tools for threat hunting. So basically, the internal one. And with the hunt box, for example, it also can be external one, but you couldn't count on your team if they again might lose something, for example. But you have the automation from the hunt box perspective and hunt point. So basically, the hunt point will send all the behavior of the user onto the machine to the hunt box, and then have it correlated and attributed. So basically, it's the pretty nice start to conduct the threat hunting. And the next step is when it's when you can cover all those possibilities. So you have the optimization for threat hunting. You have the tools. You have the threat intelligence being integrated with the with your tool, for example. So you can conduct the external threat hunting as well, trying to expose the infrastructure of the cyber criminals. It might cost more than the previous option, but also it provides the visibility over the attacker infrastructure, and you can investigate those cases not only internally but also externally. And here is how it can be really useful for you. So basically, when you understand the basic threat hunt can cover only last steps of the cyber kill chain. So basically, the weaponization process and reconnaissance are not covered by the threat hunters, but external threat hunting or global threat hunting can do that. So basically, you can see the weaponization process. You can see the preparation of domain names that are built for attacking you. And that will help you to attribute this kind of attacks and to then more precisely seek for some additional attribution or the tools that are used by those criminals, for example. So from the high-level perspective, it can look like that. So from the global threat hunting, and its power is that after you got some domain name, you got all the connections with the IP addresses with other domain names. Then you can look into the SSL certificates or SSH certificates to find any correlation with the new ones. Or you can use the irregular expression in case if there's some similar looking domain name is used, or of some similar looking name of some bank, for example, is used to use it down into the attack, for example. So basically, having those information then can lead to expose of the hacker community. So such things as the account on GitHub or nickname or phone number even may lead to the investigation or the chasing the cyber criminals as well. So it's the time when you can hack back, actually. So I will do a couple of words about the threat hunting itself. So I previously mentioned the cyber kill chain. It is like the customization of already known military definition, so the kill chain itself. But it mentions the cyber the cyber area. So as mentioned, the threat hunting is doing right here. So coming from the delivery to the actions on objectives. So reconnaissance and weaponization is not a part of threat hunt of the conventional threat hunt, of course. So and how you can use that? So reconnaissance is used for search and identification, and you possibly cannot look for Google searches. So maybe you know that you are under attack from dark forums, for example, but you can't prevent or SINT or some of those things. From a weaponization perspective, it's may lead to an investigation into the dark web. As mentioned by Tim, for example, the topic from the dark web that someone is selling the access into the network, for example, may be a part of weaponization. Then it comes from delivery and action as an objective. And you can use that and yeah, here's how you can use that. So from the delivery perspective, you can hunt for suspicious emails, for example. Maybe you know like some domain names are does have their MX records, for example, and you may know like their domain names, and then seek for your customer, let's say mailboxes or a mail service to trying to find those domain names that might be related to the cyber criminals. From the exploitation, you can hunt for unusual software, for example, that can be used or can be vulnerable for penetration, for example, or exploitation itself. The installation, you have to look for already installed the tools, for example, and so that for every part of the cyber kill chain. If we look into more like precise way, there are more standardized version of cyber kill chain. So let's look at the meter matrix. I guess that all of you are familiar with that. So basically, we will look into the enterprise ATT and CK. So the common knowledge of all of those tactics tools. So basically, here we can cover like all the steps from the details. So basically, it's the right way to start your hunt. It's all coming from the initial access to the execution, persistence, and then to the lateral movement, command and control, exfiltration, and impact. And it has like its own steps within each column. So basically, it looks like that. I guess that you're familiar with that. So, and here is like, it's really like a pivot point for starting your threat hunting process. So it's really convenient to use. You can look for some specific tactics, tools, and procedures that are described into the meter matrix, for example. You have to research to detect something with your tools, and you already know like what you have to hunt, for example. And some of the techniques are useless for threat hunting, because it may not like let you to find the artifacts and so on. So how to start threat hunting? So at first you have to set up the login. You have to build a knowledge base or use the proprietary threat intelligence, for example, your own or the open source, and so on. So you have to create your first hypothesis. Then you should start hunt and find an incident. To create your first hypothesis, you have to look into the scientific method that lays behind it. So basically, it all starts with ask a question. Like, is my network used or under an attack of some cyber gang? You have to do a background research, like according to public report, they use the shortcut modification, for example. You have to conduct the hypothesis. So basically, I will see suspicious link inside my network, for example, so I can hunt for that. So you have to test your hypothesis by doing an experiment. So the scientific method. So you have to like support your hypothesis or not support it. So just checking that. So you have to collect all link files, then you have to analyze data. So don't forget that you have to the appropriate tools for doing that. And then you have to build a report. Was your hypothesis correct or not? So basically, let's like match it onto another area of our life. So basically, it looks like that. So why is my PC is not working right now? So it's the first question. We have to create a hypothesis. So basically, maybe it has, I don't know, like the power outage. Maybe it's because the outlet is broken, for example. We have to make a prediction then. So if I plug PC into another outlet, will it work or not? So we have to test it, do an experiment, then we plug PC into another different outlet and try it again. And then we could see, like, is the PC working or not? So the hypothesis was that the outlet is broken. So basically, when we support the hypothesis is supported, so the PC is working, we just agreed onto the hypothesis that the outlet might be broken. So it's not telling you that it's definitely that way or some of those, but it's like an example from the domestic area and so on. So basically the next one is when we match it into the cyber area. So ask a question: is my network under attack of Iranian APT group? You have to construct the hypothesis again. So the threat actor might use Iran servers for C2. You have to make predictions. So I will see several connections from those IP addresses coming from my network, or vice versa. So you have to check you have to test the hypothesis and check the proxy and firewall for the geolocation IP, and to check whether do they have any connection with the Iranian, for example, or other countries' infrastructure. And then if you see those connections, for example, your hypothesis is supported, or if not, so it's not supported. So basically, that's how the scientific method works. And let's try to categorize that. So every step. So why, how, the most important step is to construct the right hypothesis. So the scientific hypothesis should be based on real world. It should be testable. It should be useful for make predictions. So I guess here is here is some change in our perception. So and it should give us new information after the proof, so we could iteratively improve our security and so on. What is non-scientific hypothesis? So it isn't correlated with your knowledge or with the real world. It's useless for making predictions. It's impossible to test, for example, or after our experiment, it doesn't give us new information after the proof. So let's start some interaction. So basically, it's the hyper game, and we will start to test the hypothesis, and you should answer, is it good or bad? So the question or the hypothesis is, there are backdoors inside our motherboards. So let's leverage upon that a bit. So it might be based on the real world, because there are a lot of such things as backdoors. It allows us to make predictions. Basically, we can predict that there might be a backdoors inside our motherboards. Maybe it might be some a chip or any other kind of compromisation that will lead us to the new information as well. So we do a prediction, do we have it? And then we try to test it. And will we? Will it give us the new information, for example, after the proof? I guess so. But if you can count on those things, if you if you heard me well, for example, you could answer no. Unfortunately, you can't find the backdoors where you can't test that. You can't bring each motherboard that you have inside your infrastructure and test them, and it will be really not the testable way to do that, of doing that. So the next one, threat actor got the main admin credentials. Whew, they're pretty harsh one, not? So is it based on real world? So basically, yes, we have we do know a lot of techniques that are based on to gathering the main admin credentials. So yeah, why not? Does it allow us to make the predictions? So basically, yeah, I guess that I will find some connections to the main admin credentials, for example. Is it testable? So if you have the tools that will log this kind of things, but if you have the domain admin, I guess so. So basically, it's testable, yeah. And will it give us new information? I guess so. Yeah, we will know where it came from, how it was used, for example, and we could then leverage or elevate upon that. So basically, it's a really nice example of a hypothesis. So I guess you got the point. You got how it works, and I guess that we could move on to the threat hunt itself. So let me just switch on my monitor, the display. So please wait a couple of minutes or seconds even. So, whew. So basically, how do we do the threat hunting process? It all starts with the knowledge base that I already mentioned. So it all starts with a knowledge base. We have our own proprietary threat intelligence that helps us to know those things, coming with the expertise and competence of our specialists and reverse engineers and all the technical guys that are working on to enriching the context and attribution the threats into to some cyber gangs, for example. And here are the example of recent activity of Lazarus. So basically, we know that they use the application .exe, that is a net malware, and probably the attack began with it. We're providing some indicators. We do know its name, for example. We do know how it works. And if we took the last example of application PDF that we have, for example, that was detected firstly. So basically here we see the kill chain. There was the domain name bought. From installation perspective, it used the PowerShell, the service execution, the user execution, the Windows management instrumentation, for example, that is really might be a part of a local attack, so living on the land, for example. So the usage of legitimate tools might be really hard to detect, for example. But we will start with some point. We know that the malware was used, which malware was used. So that's the Power Attack by, it has its own IOCs. And here is the example of the attack. So basically, I already mentioned that hunting for hashes is not enough. And how we can use that information? Yeah, we know that it's used the MMCs as a legitimate process under it. We know that it's named, for example. So basically, we will try to find something. So if I switch on to the hunt box, here, for example, you can see the dashboard of it with all the information that is required for conducting the SOC analysis and so on. But from threat hunting perspective, we won't base our hypothesis on alerting. So it's the proactive. And we should start from the investigation. And if I try to put down the hash that I copied, I won't find anything. So that might be the case. The malware was changed, the hash was modified, for example. So let's try to find that from the naming perspective. So okay. While we're searching that, we are searching for some emails that are coming that might be because I already mentioned that the main distribution channel is the mail. Mostly more than 80% of those attacks are coming from the mail. So, and here is all the capabilities of doing the threat hunt. So after reading the Lazarus Group report, you can find the application and even the email file that is connected with this activity. So basically, I want to check the file itself. So let's check those things. So we see the mail from Alice1 to Wowly. We have from Asia Pay. As agreed, please fill the document that can be downloaded here. So it leads to the application within the Dropbox. We know that the password from the archive is doku something check, so why not? And we are most interested in your experience. Please send me the form in 1 hour. So for some of those people, it might be really important to fill those. And if you didn't get the alert upon this threat, you will be then really surprised that it might do. So I want to see the file So basically, we know that it came from the Alice one. It passed all the SPF and DKIM checks. And basically, we downloaded the file, checked that, we see that how long it was processed, for example. So let's take a look into the report upon that file. So basically, we have our own, inside the handbox, there are different modules that are doing their deeds. So basically, the first one is the handbox, which is the single interface that you can see right here. The sensor besides it, or behind it, can do all the integration stuff. So it's doing the email integration, it's doing the SMB integration, and so on. So it gathered all the files from different data flows to then pass it to the next module, to the Polygon, which is our malware detonation and research platform that provides not only the verdict upon a file, so it's the benevolent or malicious, or yeah, benign, sorry. So basically, we're providing more than that. And here, for example, we can see like how the file works. So basically, it's some kind of application executable that tries to, yeah, the user has to input its activity. So, and we have like to check the behavioral analysis. Right at the beginning, we can see like the attribution to the power attack based on network traffic that is coming from there, and the threat actor Lazarus. So that might be a case. So let's check like a bit of information coming from the threat intelligence. So of course, the handbox itself isn't threat intelligence. It is integrated with it. It has like the context that we can provide to our customers to understand whether these tools are really like harmful. So basically, yeah, the Lazarus is, the power attack base. So let's check like the what it's done. So basically, to hit their or conceal their activity, they will try to use as less as possible to reach their goal. Yeah, so here we can see the execution, the defense evasion team items, so such as the checking the control panel items, its execution, the guardrails, and code signing. So basically, we see the malicious signs that came with it. So basically, it creates executional file into the system, so the MMC. And basically, it's the same MMC that we saw into the threat intelligence report. And you have like to check that at least. So we see that the digital signature has failed the verification. We have the other activities that might be right now really harmful for this perspective. And basically, it checks the system language. For example, it might be avoiding some countries, for example. So basically, if it checks the language system for being, I don't know, the English or not English and so on, so it will halt its activity if their target is not intended. So here is the meter matrix that I mentioned before. Here is the file structure. So basically, the Polygon can work with all types of archives, with even the password-protected archives. It can wait or seek for the passwords within the mails, for example, or even wait for them in the further mails, or check the email chain to understand whether there was any password that might be hidden within the documents, within the attachments, for example, that you can apply to infected and password-protected archive. More than that, the Polygon does a lot of things related to URL links. So basically, you saw that it came from the Dropbox because it was uploaded there. And basically, we have like different options there. So the Polygon can seek for files and for links, for the redirecting links, for the short links. It can download files from the Dropboxes and then do its beauty things to uncover them. So here we can see the network activity that's related to sbackservice.com. And here is the process tree with the application being launched. So we can see like the IOCs that might be downloaded even. So basically, we saw that some files were created, so you can use that in your reverse engineering activity, for example, or threat hunting. So we know that it has the network activity related to some domain name. We know that it has the UDP connections as well. And basically, we can download the pickup file to additionally like discover them or explore them. So what I want to do is to check those connections. So let's check the graph tool that is part of our external threat hunting process, and put down the IP address of, the main name of SBAC service. So basically here, as mentioned by Chris, we're constantly checking and collecting the information within the whole internet segment, so basically whole IPv4 address space. And we do know a lot about the infrastructure of cyber criminals. So basically here you can see all the nodes that are connected with this activity. If you want to know like how they are connected with these files, for example, you can use and you can use and see the connections between the links, for example. So basically it has the it has the connections towards these files. It has the tag, for example, to this file, and how these things are connected. For example, you can search for additional things. For example, you can extend this visibility to understand whether do you have like any other connections to the malicious actor. So basically, you can upload all those information via CSV format right onto this click, and basically we have like the holistic visibility over the domain names, IP addresses. We correlated the SSH and SSL keys to understand whether they are connected with any other sources, for example. And here you can see the historical information, even to understand whether it is attacking you, or does it have like the MX records type, for example, to conduct some mail phishing and so on. So does it have the services inside it? For example, what are the type of services that it hosted, for example? Was there any HTTP port was opened, for example, or was there SMTP, for example? So here was usage of the SMTP service. Even you can search for some additional IOCs, for example, right here, to understand what is it is related to. But here we can see like localhost, local domain. So, and here from SSL perspective, you can see like the all connected hosts, where it valid from and to, where it firstly and lastly seen. For example, the SSH keys that also might point to some IP addresses or might connect different nodes. The files that are coming from the Polygon and not only, but also from the open resources such as the AnyRun, the VirusTotal, and there is a lot of those services that you can check this kind of files. So there is a lot of information, the emails as well, that are related to this activity. So basically, it's parsing of the already known or historical whois information. And here we have the tags, for example, that can be really useful in our threat intelligence platform, because it will then contain all the related information regarding these nodes or these tags. And that can be used to identify and attribute the threats, for example. So basically, we did an external threat hunt. We know that these hosts are related to Lazarus and Power Entanglement. We can do like we can shrink the time range to understand whether does it have any kind of connections or some infrastructure has changed, for example, for the last time. So let's take a look at the recent activity. So for this year, for example, and basically, that's the same information that we had here. And you can use that to fulfill your or fill your other solutions, for example, or because we will automatically block this kind of activity and so on. But what's from the internal threat hunting process? So I want to check whether do I have any hunt points or PCs that are right now infected with this malware, or was there any executable process being launched? So we know the time, so it was at the 11th of August, it was at the 8th. So basically we can check like whether there was any kind of suspicious activity at that time. So let's take this time range, let's find some nice things. Let's try to do that at least. So from our report, we know that some of the files were created. We can use the hashes, but yeah, I already showed you that hashes are not like reliable source. So basically, let's check the local attack that we see here. So the usage of MMC, so the management console. So I will try to use that as seeking for the payload file name. Let it be mmc.exe. So yeah, we saw that. So the first point, or the first pivot point of our thread hunting right here. So we saw that this file was created, and it looks like really not legitimate, because it's not that part, it's not that path when this tool should be located, of course. So let's check all the connected processes with it. So basically, I want to like extend my visibility. And after putting down the header process unique ID, we can see all connected alerts with that. So basically, we even, based on the color of severity level, we can deduce what are the high critical activities. And we can see here like the usage or access to the cryptography. We saw the network connection opening. We saw that specific file or DLL was launched. We saw the default IM GPG JPEG file was created and closed then. So basically, it's highly likely to be infected. So what if I just add the whole like sequence of it? So the process payloaded process unique ID, and then we can see like the whole activity coming from the very beginning. So at the 8 of 8/17, there was the process creation of application.exe that came from the downloads. Then we see like the Windows handle on process copy creation from the Explorer. So it creates the file, it creates the thread, then it creates the handle to the thread copy creation. So crss.exe was used. So here we see new mutexes that were created, and all the activity that came from the hunt point perspective will let you to understand like this was infection. So you see here the mutexes that came the same from the Polygon report. So basically you caught that. So you caught this threat, and the next step of your researchings should be the isolation of a host. You can even use the search, for example. You can save that and share it with your team, for example. You can create it as visible to others. And then you should hold this activity. So basically, you can isolate the host or check some additional information regarding the activity that was executed onto the endpoint, the hunt point. Basically, you should like isolate the host, then put all those indicators that you found into the incident response team, because your work here is done. So basically, as a threat hunter, all you need to be sure that you was penetrated, the PC was infected, you found the artifacts, and that's how it works. Right from one single interface, without any like or without any additional like jumping from one solution to another. Right from the single interface of Handbox, you will be able to do the threat hunting, both the external and internal ones. So I guess here our work is done. I'd be glad to see any questions from your side, for example, because we have like 10 minutes for a Q&A session, I guess. And yeah, please feel free to answer. Please feel free to embrace this beauty and this ease and the complex ease as it is. So basically, yeah, it works like that. So we came from the process, we came from the structurized like definitions and so on, and we done the threat hunting, the first threat hunting, and I guess that was pretty enjoyable. So I'd be glad for your feedback as well. So after the session there will be some kind of poll that where you can say that Andrew was beautiful. Yeah, thank you, Andrew, and so on. So yeah, from my perspective, hi Chris, I saw that you came. So basically, we will wait for a couple of minutes to see any questions, if there are any, because I guess it was pretty straightforward. It was from the very bottom to the top to the real case. And yeah, thank you all for your time, for your interest, and for your attendance.
Yes, thanks, Andrew. That was a great presentation, great use case, very relevant, I think, and as you say, quite clear. I think I even managed to understand most of it, so well done. As we say, yes, guys, please, by all means, feel free to ask any questions, make any comments or anything else, and yeah, thank you very much for joining otherwise. On for a little bit to see if yeah, there are any questions coming through.
Yeah, just one thing that I want to mention, that the Handbox is a perfect platform for doing threat hunting process, but also like we have the solutions that do protect the infrastructure automatically. And at the 18th of August, we will have another webinar regarding the MDP platform that we have here. So it's basically the Polygon. It will be more, there will be more cases related to real life, so they will be based on real life as a hypothesis that you should build. And you could see like the how the Polygon differs from other, from the conventional sandboxing technologies. So basically, it's when we leave sandboxes behind. And I guess that we will share with you the link to this webinar. And yeah, please feel free to attend. We will be really glad to see you again. I guess there is no questions coming. So basically, I guess we could like proceed with the farewelling words. So Chris, please as well feel free to do that. And I guess we didn't. Oh, I see the question. Oh, Richard, yeah, thank you for a question. So thank you for appreciation. So on the Handbox, is there any integration into existing infrastructure and tools like PAM, endpoint, and firewall to enhance functionality? So basically, we can do the integration into existing infrastructure, but we can't be fed from the different sources. So basically, we are the source of this additional information, and we can be integrated into other solutions such as Source, such as Seams, and so on. And more than that, we have like the more even functionality to provide more context in less alerts for the SIEM system, for example. But we can't like feed other solutions into the Handbox because it has like the ecosystem within it. It uses its proprietary protocols, its proprietary structures or events, and basically we can cover every channel of the integration coming. So from started from the SMB shares, email integration, both as in notification mode when you can see the retrospective alerts or even the recent alerts, but the files are coming right into the infrastructure, or we can stay as an inline MTA solution. So basically, we can detect the threats and malicious attachments on approach. So basically, they won't like get into the protected perimeter. And it's more than that. Let's say, so I guess I covered your question about the integration with existing solutions. And we are doing even more than does the PM endpoint and firewalls. Not the firewalls, because we're not standing at the border, but we can be integrated there as well. So I don't see other questions coming. Thank you, Richard. So yeah, I guess it's time to farewell and say thank you, guys. I'll hand over to Chris, and yeah, we'll see each other lately.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Brilliant presentation, much appreciated. Very interesting, and also Tim. He had to drop off, but appreciated his input there. Always interesting insights into what is happening in the African and South African landscape. Everybody who joined the call today, thank you very much. Your time is appreciated. I know we're all spinning and in one meeting to the next, so really taking time out of the day to learn a little bit around threat hunting is most appreciated. I hope that you derived some value from the presentations. I hope that you enjoyed it. And yeah, further than that, to the team that set everything up, to SCAfrica, thank you very much. We appreciate the efforts, and we look forward to conducting more events like this in future. And thanks again, everybody who attended. Thanks again, everybody who presented. And yeah, have a great day further.
Thanks to everyone. Thank you for your time and efforts. So we'll see you again. Cheers and bye.